It is your local Western Pizza. Rob Vanstone, you got your internet figured out there, my friend. Nice to see you.
Good to see you, Barney. Belated happy birthday. I had this bright idea that I would go and sit on the champions deck with the 2025 Grey Cup banner in the background. And for some reason, that walk over there somehow disabled my Wi-Fi.
Oh,
So I was scrambling all over trying to find somewhere where I could get the four little,
yeah.
whatever that insignia is. So I apologize. It was a noble gesture. I wanted to have a great background. Instead, you got the press box, which is also plush and beautiful, but I had more grandiose goals today.
We're good. I appreciate you trying, nonetheless. I don't know if you heard, but I was down in Montana. I was in Ottawa too, which we'll get into that a bit too. Then we went to Montana and watching soccer at a couple of taverns, Canadian game and the US game, and getting into all that. And then I asked a curious fellow, and I like to talk to people. I've never been punched actually for doing it. Do it a lot in Vegas. Just ask, hey, so what do you think? What do you think about the CFL? Because we're getting into countries, and they were cheering for us, and I was cheering for them. And they said they absolutely love watching the game when they find it on a CBS network. I know it used to be kind of on ESPNs and all that. They love watching the CFL game and how exciting it is. Mind you, when I asked, do you think like a team would maybe work in Montana or over the border and all that? They were like, no. It's college football. You see the other leagues trying that don't work. They're like, no. But it's a great game. And the other thing, I didn't mention this. I said, do you know how many teams are in the CFL? And they're all like, no. They kind of tried to rattle a few off. And I said, it's only 9. I said, do you think there's anything wrong with that? They're like, no. They're saying it's great. Every time I watch it, it's great. It's exciting. And then I went into how many overs you could hit this year because of the scores. I'm sure you've interviewed and you talk to people south of the border. Do you usually get the same vibe? Like, it's good football. It's exciting football. They like watching it.
Yeah, people who have had that exposure to it have loved it. I remember the 95 Grey Cup here, and Baltimore Stallions ended up winning that. And a sizable contingent of Baltimore fans were here. My mom, bless her heart, befriended a Baltimore Stallions fan named Joe Short, who for years afterwards would go to the Grey Cup wherever it was. And he was here in 95 with some of his friends. And my mom and Joe Short used to exchange Christmas cards every year. And he always loved the CFL and carried on his fandom long after the Baltimore Stallions left, which was shortly after the 95 season.
Baltimore, why do you think my actually sister and brother-in-law live there, and I've visited. Baltimore is an interesting city. It's beautiful, but it's got some points. Close to DC.
I want to go to Baltimore because I got hooked on The Wire, and now I want to go to Baltimore to see what Baltimore's like.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, they got
a great show.
Fells Point. It's like, by the harbor, and I remember all the bars and restaurants and all that. Then the inner harbor, and you can take the water taxi. We took the water taxi over to Camden Yards. My sister worked at Camden Yards. I thought it was we drove by. That's the Baltimore Ravens had just been back, I think, a couple of years. Then they drove me by the old stadium where the Orioles played, and then the Stallions played. And it was by then already condemned, nothing going on, but it was still up. And I was like, man, it's crazy to think that there was a CFL team here, and I watched them for years, and they were so successful. Did you ever put your finger on why, besides the fact that they didn't have an NFL team and then they got it back, but why Baltimore was so much more successful than the other teams that didn't have NFL teams also down there, Rob?
I think ownership was a big issue there. I think a very strong ownership. I think winning helped. One of their first moves was to hire Don Matthews. They hired Jim Popp. They understood how the CFL game works. Some of the other American teams would hire American coaches that had no or little understanding of the 3-down game. And it was a more gradual adjustment for them, whereas with Don Matthews, and they signed a pile of free agents, Gerald Bayless, Charles Anthony from the Roughriders, Tracy Ham, they acquired him pretty quickly. So they had star power, and they had players and coaches who understood the game, and then you add the fact that they didn't have to play any Canadian players, and the natural advantage that they had with having Don Matthews and Jim Pop and a marquee quarterback, coupled with the ratio issues, the Baltimore football populace had been starved for football, and it just everything connected at the right time there, and that was a success story when there weren't many in terms of how those teams fared. I think Sacramento was another team that did pretty well. They had a committed owner in Fred Anderson, and David Archer had some success, and etc. But Baltimore was sort of the example of how to do that when it was being done correctly. That team was loaded. They probably should have won 2 Grey Cups.
Very, very good. I'm glad I asked you that question, because I wouldn't have connected the dots with the ownership and then hiring successful CFL people. Jeffrey says it on the chat too, so he was in the know. And then I'm just looking here. I had no Mike Pringle. I was like, did he just start? I remember with Baltimore, but he had Sacramento.
He was with Sacramento previously.
And it looks like he had Atlanta Falcons 90-91. Then he had a cup of coffee with the Edmonton Eskimos then. In time he spent 22 carries, 127. So he played with the Eskimos. Then the Sacramento Surge of the World American Football League, Sacramento Gold Miners, then Baltimore Stallions.
The old Baltimore Stadium, they had a playoff game against the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1976, and not long after that game, a small plane crashed into the upper deck, and had that happened 15 minutes earlier, there would have been people in the stadium. And the pilot, fortunately, was okay, but that's my Baltimore Stadium trivia.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so we got the Riders in Ottawa. I was in Ottawa the week before. I saw 2 people walking with Red Blacks jerseys on the street. I was like, okay. I did ask some people at different places, a couple of bartenders. Soccer was huge going on ever. I said, so tell me about the Red Blacks. Are you, fans, popular, all that? They're like, never been to a game. Know about them, never been to a game. But regardless, Riders go in there. A bit of a slow start. But the one thing that early in the game that I thought the Riders doing a great job of, and any offensive coordinator or coach for that matter, we were getting solid yards. Conley was getting solid yards on first down.
Yeah, and he's it's tough not to have AJ Ouellette, but Conley has filled in quite capably the last couple of games. And Trevor Harris, one of his mantras coming into the year was just, it's been, how are you going to respond when adversity hits? And this is nothing new, but it's something he's been really accentuating, and I presume the team as a whole has been talking about. So suddenly you're down 10-0 with after an interception and a blocked punt, and just shrugged it off, and it became 10-7, and eventually the game tilted in the Roughriders' favor. But it's fun. Ottawa's been a tough place, irrespective of their record. 2 years ago there was that 22-22 tie there, and then last year the Riders won 2013, and it's tough to win on the road. It's tough to win, period. And the Riders' last 9 victories have been by single-digit margins. So I'm not sure, given the way things have shaken out, it should be really surprising that the game evolved that way. And yeah, Trevor Harris referred to it as an ugly win, and there's been various characterizations of it. But the Roughriders have tended over the last 2 years to win close game after close game after close game, and they haven't lost very often, period. So I think after a while you just have to say, okay, this is a team that finds a way to win, and that's a trait, that's a quality. You can't teach it, but you'd better have it.
I think I stood up and cheered actually for Nick Wiebe. And that forced fumble, you must have been happy for him as well.
Yeah, I let loose the yelp that woke up my dog, That's the first forced fumble of Nick Wiebe's professional football career and the first fumble recovery. And this is the Roughriders reigning special teams player of the year, so he's already done some notable things on special teams. But that was such a huge play in the game, and a lot. After that, it was largely a game in the Roughriders' favor. But that and the Matthew Sexton punt return, that's two huge plays on special teams.
Yeah, Matthew Sexton. Let's get into that.
What a great story.
Tell us about this journeyman. What do you know that we don't know, the casual fan, about this guy, Rob?
Well, he's the first Rough Rider ever from Clinton, Michigan, and apparently, when we chatted during training camp, apparently he's the first product of Clinton High School in Michigan to, I think, was to play like college football or a certain tier of college football. It's a real underdog story. This is somebody who. I think he's been with five NFL teams. This was his second CFL team, XFL, et cetera, et cetera. He's certainly toured the ranks of professional football. And oddly enough, his introduction was to the Canadian Football League. He was with the Ottawa Redblacks in rookie camp this year. And then the Riders signed him shortly after that. And the Riders on Friday started two players who'd begun the CFL season with other teams right out of the outset of camp. Quali Connolly was in Montreal and Matthew Sexton was in Ottawa. And here they are showing up during training camp and playing pretty prominent roles in the Rider win.
Does he remind you of anyone, Rob, in your years covering, the guy that's just grinded, that's played different leagues, different teams, that just didn't shut it down? He came up and was able to, forge, I guess, a path in the CFL.
Oh, Trevor Harris.
Okay.
If you look at Trevor's referred to his pre-CFL years as the washing machine, and there's leagues that you have to Google to remember that he was in. And from coming out of college, 2009. Through going to Toronto in 2012, he was everywhere. Different position, different skill set. But if you look at the background of Trevor Harris between college and the Rough Riders and compare that to Matthew Sexton, it's really not that much different. It's there's that persistence. Trevor didn't start court games consistently until he was 29 years old, and Matthew Sexton is going to be 29 in October, and so maybe there's a bit of a parallel there.
Yeah, that is a really good one. Jake Mayer. I like Jake Mayer. He was in studio. He helped co-host last year. Great guy. Likes to golf. Just seems like a genuine guy. Obviously when he's playing the Riders, we don't want him to win. But what did you think of Jake's game?
I thought Jake did fine. The pass he threw to Geno Lewis near the goal line, what a dime that was. Obviously the quarterbacking has been an area of discussion in Ottawa. Sometimes I think you need to, here's that pass I was referencing on for those of you watching. Sometimes you need to evaluate the quarterback while factoring in the circumstances. And Ottawa's had its struggles this year. That's nothing new. I remember when Tom Clements played in Saskatchewan for 8 games in the 1979 season and threw 2 touchdown passes, threw 11 interceptions, didn't look at all like Tom Clements. Before that, he played with Ottawa, terrific player. From Saskatchewan, he went to Hamilton, subsequently to Winnipeg, now in the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. And the only place where he struggled was at the start of the 79 season in Saskatchewan. That was a team that didn't win a game until October 14th. And he didn't stop being Tom Clements. There just wasn't the cast around him. And I'm not suggesting that Jake Mayer is of that echelon, but it's tough to evaluate a quarterback when the situation hasn't been synonymous with winning for a while. And I wonder if he's caught up in that trap a bit.
You talked about that play, and Curtis showed it on the feed. But there was one in the fourth quarter where he throws it across the middle in an absolute dart. And I was like, that's a big time. Unless he closed his eyes, then just put it there. That was a big time pass and completion when they needed it. So yeah, hands are full again this week as they travel to Edmonton, Mayor and the Red Blacks. Trevor Harris, I saw you tweet. By the way, you got to follow Rob during the game and on Twitter as well. That was his first carry of the year. Speaking of yelps, I yelped when he took off there.
I get very, very nervous when I see that. And I used to, when Ronnie used to take off once a season, I used to have the same same responses. So, but I mean, Trevor Harris had the highest average per carry on the Roughriders last year. So
he had the what? Sorry, you say that
the
again?
highest average yards per carry on the Roughriders last year. So there's a great trivia question. And now at 9.0 yards, he's leading the team once again. So the T-Mobile label that he's affixed to himself is certainly valid.
Yeah, it's okay. Another one here. I wanted to ask you: most TD passes by a Rider quarterback after the first 4 regular season games.
Yeah, Trevor Harris has got 10. I think there's 3 of them who have 10. I'd have to revisit my tweet.
Burgess, Lancaster
Durant
have 10.
And there's I think Henry Burris and Darian Durant are above him. Henry, I think 12. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm trying to remember my tweet or my X. I think Henry Burris had 12 over the first 4 games in 2000. 2 of them were in overtime to Curtis Marsh.
Correct.
In a 52 all tie against Calgary on July 28th, 2000, for all that's worth. And then Darian Durant was exploded out of the gate in 2013. So, and Trevor's thrown for multiple touchdowns in each of the first 4 games, and that's also, I think, that's pretty tough to do. And I'm just wondering, what kind of trajectory he's going to be on. You hear all sorts of talk, and obviously everybody saw it and appreciated the kind of game Vernon Adams Jr. had, etc. And people are already talking about MOP candidates, and I think by the end of the year, Trevor's going to be in that discussion. Mm-hmm. And this is someone who wasn't mentioned in the discussion as much as he should have been last year. It ended up being the Grey Cup most valuable player, and I think he was fine with that.
Rob Vanstone, Rider historian from the Riders, joining us here. Rob, can you stay with us for maybe another 8 minutes if we go to break and come back? Internet's good?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take my pulse and see if I'm still functional, but that should be okay, at least for 4 or 5 minutes. Then I'll start to fade.
It's for Saskatchewan Lotteries, where one of the Rider scratch tickets, $75,000 main prizes, have been won. We're going to go to break. We'll come back with more Rob Vanstone. It is the Sports Cage, streaming through our YouTube channel at sportscage.com. Welcome back to the Sports Cage on this Tuesday. Rob Vanstone's joining me on the Western Pizza guest hotline here. We're talking a lot of things. Now, as we went to break here, if you heard us talking earlier, we were talking about the Baltimore franchise in the CFL. You brought up a point. It was the Steelers and
the Colts.
Baltimore
76
Colts.
first-round AFC playoff game.
76, and a plane crashed into old Memorial Coliseum. And Kurt, if you're watching the stream, Curtis found a picture of it. That is inside the stadium. Like, I was picturing it hit the outside. It landed in a section in the upper deck, Rob.
Yeah, and the pilot survived that, apparently. You look at that now, and it's miraculous that he did. But it's so fortunate that, again, the timing was what it was. But
very.
Yikes! I remember hearing that on the news that night. That was in the days when we didn't have cable television in Saskatchewan, and the only NFL games you got were on CBC after the CFL season. And so that was the one NFL game we were able to watch that day, one NFL playoff game. And Terry Bradshaw threw a bomb to Frank Lewis for a touchdown, hit Lynn Swan for a couple of touchdowns. Franco Harris and Rocky Blyer both got hurt in the same game. And what might have been the best Steeler team of that whole dynasty period ended up being fed to the Oakland Raiders the next week because there was no running game. And that Steeler team averaged like fewer than 10 points allowed over the course of the 76 season. It's probably the best Steeler defense they ever had, and they never even got past the second round of the playoffs.
Interesting. Wow. So I think the most interesting thing of all that info you just threw at us was NFL games were a rerun on CBC.
Yeah,
after
we didn't get any NFL until the CFL season was over, and then we get one game a weekend, and that was tough for someone who just loved football of all sorts of all descriptions. So for Christmas that year, my dad got me a 9-band radio that pulled in AM like crazy, and I was able to get American radio stations all over and listen to them. And it had a shortwave signal or shortwave band, an American Armed Forces shortwave station, shortwave channel used to air NFL broadcasts on the Armed Forces Network, and that's how I paid most of my attention to the NFL until '78 when we finally got cable TV. What a beautiful day that was.
Speaking of CBC, I caught this last week on my birthday, July 2nd. Unfortunate news: a passing on July 2nd. Tommy Hunter, the great Tommy Hunter from the Tommy Hunter Show, passed away. Who doesn't remember that from their youth? If you're in our demographic, the Tommy Hunter Show. Al Cherney, I think was
Put the Rhythm Bells on there. The Allen sisters, were they on the Tommy Hunter Show? I'm trying to remember. I mean, when you only had 2 TV stations growing up, everybody watched everything. And
exactly.
Heather Pearson, I used to work with her at the Leader Post. Heather was our editor-in-chief, and she told a great story on Facebook the other day about interviewing Tommy Hunter. And apparently the publicist contacted Heather in advance and said, you're going to have to work really hard to get Tommy to talk about himself because all he's going to want to do is ask about you. He's just so interested in other people. And sure enough, the interview came to be, and Tommy Hunter spent more time asking about Heather than Heather was able to spend asking about Tommy Hunter. Just a genuine guy who, you don't find that in interview situations very often where you end up being the one being interviewed.
Yeah, many a night.
You never hear a bad word about him. He was just such a genuine guy. And I'm not a country music fan by any stretch of the imagination.
You're a jazz guy.
I appreciate talent and I appreciate grace and class. And he was every bit of that.
Tommy Hunter, that's right, passed away last week. Back to the Riders, Ottawa.
How did I get on that tangent? I'm sorry.
That's okay. I led you down that path. Classic. I saw this tweet too. Most catches by a Saskatchewan Roughrider player after 4 games. Keyshawn Johnson, 2026, now sits with 32. Ray Elgard, and I would have never thought this guy would have. Ray Elgard had 34 catches after the first 4 games. The second guy, I would have never got him as catching that many passes. Must have been a lot of swings or dumps or into the flats, quick little outs. Lucius Floyd.
Yeah, Kent Austin loved throwing to Lucius Floyd. And there were many games when Lucius Floyd would have more receptions than he did carries in the early 90s. He was the West Division's Rookie of the Year in 1990, and he was basically another receiver. The running game was an afterthought in those games. And when they did lean on the running game, it was usually with Milson Jones.
My dad loved Milson Jones. He had a boiler. He had a big boiler.
But whether it was, you go from Tim McRae to Lucius Floyd to Mike Saunders, and they had just a procession of running backs who could have played slot back. And in fact, I think Mike was a slot back, a receiver in college at some point, and they were just another part of the passing attack that was just absolutely amazing to watch in the early 90s.
Have you been out? I know I saw you there in game 1 to the tailgate experience. Are you going this Sunday back out there? What's the game plan?
Yeah, I think I will go and pay a visit and try to observe my type 2 diabetes diet, and while sniffing and smelling all sorts of bratwurst or whatever delicacies are being served. But I want to go and look around and do some socializing. My wife was thinking of going and thinking about taking the dog, so that we might all visit it and then take the family home to our dog's condominium and get on with the day.
I want to get your I want to get your take on what you think. It's unfortunate, and I know they're coming in here this weekend to play the Riders, and they're not going to have Bo Levi Mitchell. But in a game that I'm watching, and people are watching, and he's having such a great season. Last year he had an unbelievable season, and then Zach Collaros, both guys out of that game, and we were talking older quarterbacks, a little bit older quarterbacks, and they're slinging it around the yard. But as a football fan, as a fan of the league, sucks to see that happen to Bo.
Well, I mean, I look back and just some of the maybe I'm being too nostalgic today, but I look back at games I'd watched at Taylor Field. Of course, I loved watching the Rough Rider players, but I'm so glad I saw Warren Moon play. I'm so glad I saw Dieter Brock throw a football. Doug Flutie, Jeff Garcia, people you've mentioned earlier in the show. They're part of this. They're part of the show too. And my mom loved watching Jackie Parker. It was always a big deal when Edmonton came to town because she loved Jackie Parker. She loved Tony Gabriel and Peter Dallariva and Terry Evanshin. She always had a soft spot for players on the other teams. And if the other team isn't viable, it isn't much of a show. And especially Bo being 36, even if not for the injury, you think, okay, how many more chances am I going to get to watch Bo, especially being on an Eastern team? How many more times is he going to come in here? Mm-hmm. Maybe a handful if we're really lucky. And, and we're lucky here. We get to watch Trevor Harris at 40 years of age, looking like he's 28 years of age, and appreciate every opportunity you get to watch these wonderful athletes play, regardless of the affiliation, because they're the ones who give us they entertain us royally. I was always a big Jim Young fan with the BC Lions. Jim Young will always be my favorite non-Rough Rider of all time, and I loved it when BC came in because the first sports book I ever read was Dirty 30 by Jim Young, co-authored by Jim Taylor, and Jim Young was always kind of one of my football heroes. And so then I got a chance to meet him, and he was just as nice a guy as he was as great a guy as he was a player. So,
and we mentioned him on the show earlier. He was actually my favorite player, my favorite CFL player, Riders included, for years of probably grade 8, grade 7 to grade 11 was Tracy Ham. I wanted number 8 when I first played football in high school in grade 9. I said, I want Tracy Ham. I want number 8. And they said, you're playing D-line. You're not getting number 8. So then it wasn't until the last 2 years when I got to play quarterback, I didn't even have a sniff at that number. But I loved Tracy Ham and what he did. And then I remember going through, like, this is a little bit later, loved Casey Printers, watching him play. And it's guys from other teams, like you said. This weekend, though, we expect Trey Ford? I know Jake Dolagala went in for Hamilton there. Looked a little bit maybe shaky, but I'd be surprised with the success he's had against the Riders and hear that we don't see young Trey Ford. Yeah,
I would think that would be the logical path for them to go, or maybe use Jake in some plays where the packages are what he's more comfortable with. I mean, they're two such different styles. Jake has pretty good mobility for someone who's 6'7", but I mean, Trey Ford is a skill set that very few possess. Why not take advantage of that? And especially when there's not a lot of recent film on him, that could be a tough one to coach against, especially if you've been if you've been thinking, okay, we're going to play Bo, this is what we're going to expect. Well, whatever you were expecting out of the Hamilton offense probably is off the board now. That presents a bit of a coaching challenge.
Have you watched any of the World Cup, or we're just watching Canada, or are you getting into it at all?
I watch it when my wife has it on, and I happen to be walking by the TV. I'm not a real soccer person. If Wales qualifies again for the third time, I'll be more interested. My dad was born in Neath, Glamorganshire, Wales. So that'll be my World Cup team, even when Wales makes it for the third time.
It's I'm into it. I can't believe how many soccer games I've watched over the last 3 weeks that it's been going on. And then I said, now I know what it feels like when people from other countries get wrapped up into the Olympic hockey or into the Four Nations Cup. I'm like, that's me in soccer. I was in. I'm in. Now I'm watching Switzerland and Colombia, and we're into extra time. If people are taping this game close your ears. It's 0-0. They keep showing the crowd. A lot of Colombian fans.
Well, I've got the MLB app on my phone where I can listen to every radio broadcast of every game. And once baseball season gets here, a lot of my leisurely sports following that doesn't involve the Roughriders is just listening to whatever NFL, whatever baseball games are on my phone. And that's a lovely companion for 6 months a year. Too bad about the Mets.
Very relaxing listening to baseball over the radio. It's like golf. I've listened to the majors driving as well. It's very, very relaxing. All right, Rob. Well, maybe we'll see you and Candy at the tailgate on Sunday.
Well, she puts a tail in tailgate, doesn't she? So
there we go.
And she's so cute. What a beautiful dog.
Yeah. All right, we got to bring her back in the
we got to do the next one in studio, Barney.
Okay. Well, next week, hopefully you make time for us on Tuesday. We'll recap things. Thanks for doing this again, Rob.
Always a pleasure, Barney. Thanks so much. Thanks, Curtis. Take care.
Yeah.